All right, everybody. Thanks for coming here. This is Friday night, the May the 28th. So we are on our 8th meeting, and this is the behavioral economics of global affairs. My name is Luis Maya, and as always, it's truly a pleasure to be here and to practice a little bit my English at the same time that I try to help you out and improving your listening skills. Let's remember what we are doing here. We're trying to have like a class, but it's an easy one. It's an easy class in which we not only learn a little bit more about behavior economics, about the global challenges that we have to face over the next 50, 100 years, but also we want to practice our English. So the behavioral economics of global affairs, a economia comportamental de questões globais, this is all an opportunity to practice, to get out of the box a little bit, think out of the box, and also to practice other skills, right? I think we all know that learning English is kind of a big differential in a job market. So as much as you can, I encourage you to try and practice your English. Nowadays we have podcasts, we have YouTube, we can see our programs, our shows, we can watch them with subtitles, and then we can see the little letters there. We can read through whatever is happening on the screen. So it's a good way to practice your English, your ability to express yourself in a different language. This may make a huge difference in our careers, okay? So as we are just starting our second half of the class, it's always good to remember that in this class, we're going to have a series of tests. They are going to be weekly. So every week you have to practice, you have to show your skills, what you have learned in a set of very simple questions. Those are in electronic forms, Google Forms, right? And we will start this class today going over some of the answers that you guys got right or wrong in our last test, okay? What do you say? Does it sound good? Please raise your thumb there so I can see that you guys are following me. All right, Bruna, thanks. Who else? Jaime, thank you. All right, guys. Thanks for signaling here and there so I can see that you guys can listen and you can understand what's going on, okay? So I'm going to share my screen here. If you have any trouble watching this, please let me know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this. Okay, so this is not exactly what I was looking for. Not that. What I'm looking for is this. Okay, here we go. All right, so we have a set of 10 questions, and we're going to go over pretty quickly here through these questions. And if you have any doubt, please raise your hand, stop me, open up your mic, or just type something in our chat box, and I'm going to try to go back and explain to you, okay? First one, it's an easy one. 80% of you got it right. And the sentence goes like this. Sludge are like evil nudges. Organizations use their knowledge of social and cognitive biases to take advantage of people rather than to help them. So here is the sentence. It's saying, embarramentos são como empurrãozinhos do mal. Organizações usam seus conhecimentos sobre viés cognitivos e sociais para tirar vantagem das pessoas, ao invés de ajudá-las. That is correct, okay? Now, guys, I think this is a huge, a very important issue in a country like Brazil. In Brazil, we have sludges all the time in our everyday life. But things are just beginning to change. And I'm going to tell you a story. I mean, this is a personal experience I had this week. I was just about to renew my driver's license. Eu tinha que renovar a minha carteira de motorista. So I went over to the Detran website and I filled out the forms. I could schedule an exam. I had to pay some fees. I don't like that, but at least it's all online. And then, as soon as I had the exam, I had to see a doctor. But as soon as I did, 2 days after that, I got an email. And this was an email from Detran. And they were saying, here you are. If you want to pick up your driver's license in an electronic form, you're going to have it on your cell phone. You just have to download this app, log on, and that's it. And check this out. I don't have to go to the Detran, and I don't have to pick up a physical copy of my driver's license. Now I can just show up my cell phone to whoever asks me, and I have this both as an ID identification document and as my driver's license. So it was simpler, it was faster, and there's no way I can lose that, right? So some public agencies just started to realize that they can and they should make the life of citizens easier. And if they don't do that, well, actually what they are doing is sludge. Many, many times, for example, if you have an accident in your job and you have to go to INSS, it's a huge pain in the neck. It's very hard. You have to get copies. You have to take copies some places. You have to go through doctor's exams. And there's a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of red tape, so that you can just access regular benefits to which you are entitled. Você tem direito àqueles benefícios e às vezes você tem que ir por uma burocracia enorme para conseguir apenas que seus direitos sejam observados. So sludge is a big deal in Brazil. If you open your eyes to what sludges are, you're going to see them almost everywhere in Brazil. We have to stop doing that. We have to try and make people's lives easier, faster, and more convenient, okay? The second statement says something like this. A classical example of sludge occurs when governmental traffic control agencies impose traffic tickets on people that drive too fast. Now, em português, clássico exemplo de embarramento ou de embarreiramento acontece quando agências governamentais de controle de tráfego impõem multas para as pessoas que dirigem rápido demais. Wait, this is not what sludge is about. Sludge is when an organization is trying to take advantage of you and they are using their knowledge about how people actually behave in order to somehow deny access to some sort of benefit or service, right? So here, when you have traffic tickets, this is not of the government's interest, regardless of what people say. You impose traffic tickets because people get killed in Brazil. And this is a huge figure. The number of people who die in Brazil just because of traffic accidents is astonishing. I mean, no country in the world has such huge numbers. So this is not exactly what we're talking about. This is not sludge. This is just trying to prevent this disaster of people dying in traffic. So 87% of you said exactly, this is false. This is not what sludge is about. Okay? Please interrupt me if you have a question. The third statement says, 3 examples of sludge are unnecessary long protocols to unsubscribe to a service, like a phone call plan, excessive identification requirements, preventing a person's accessing benefits to which he or she is entitled, and the third one, delaying service by requiring copies of documents that are substitutes and provide redundant information. Ok, so this is a true statement. Se você coloca protocolos longos demais para uma pessoa cancelar algum tipo de serviço, se você exige identificação para a pessoa acessar aquilo que ela tem direito, ou exige múltiplas formas de identificação, então, às vezes as pessoas te pedem o RG, o CPF, o dispensa militar, o título de eleitor, tudo isso para você se matricular e, de alguma forma, ter acesso a um benefício a que você tem direito. Isso é um absurdo, isso não faz sentido. Era para o governo fazer ficar mais fácil, né, em vez de ficar mais difícil. E, por último, o atraso na provisão de um serviço com a exigência de cópias de documentos redundantes, né? Então, mais uma vez, tá? Okay, so those are true examples of sludge. And 91% of you got it right. Okay, the fourth one. Each of the statements below characterize the garbage can model of organizational behavior, except, which means choose the false statement, okay? And then there's the first one here. Members' preferences are inconsistent among themselves and over time. As preferências dos membros são inconsistentes entre eles mesmos num dado momento e na medida que o tempo passa. That is true. That is what happens in garbage can organizations, right? The second one, technological choices and the way of doing business is pretty much consensual. Oh, no. Garbage cans, well, they have a hard time figuring out what's the best way of doing stuff. And people are all the time fighting over it, right? So just for example, think about how we fight the pandemic. Some people say, oh, you have to vaccinate. Some other people say, no, you have to use hydroxychloroquine. No, you have to use ivermectin. No, you have to just get social distancing. No, you have to wear masks. And people don't agree upon what's the best way to avoid infection and avoid the pandemic. So yeah, this is kind of garbage can model. You know, everyone has his own idea what's the best way to proceed. The third one says, so here we got like 91% of you got it right. Then the next one, just to check, technological choices and the way of doing business is pretty much, members' participation and the level of engagement vary. Yeah, this is a hugely important characteristics of garbage can organizations. So sometimes people are there, they are paying attention, and sometimes people just vanish. Or even if they are there, they are just not engaged. They are not paying attention to what's going on. And finally, you get like the fourth statement saying, frequently, solutions are looking for problems, rather than the other way around. Frequentemente, as soluções ficam procurando por problemas, ao invés do caminho oposto. Yeah, that's true. That's what happens in garbage can organizations. People have the solution and they try to convince people, some other people, that they should adopt their proposals. Okay, so solutions looking for problems, and sometimes those problems haven't even been identified yet. But still someone is saying, I got the solution, here we go. All right. Questions so far? All right, so I'll keep going, but please interrupt me. Otherwise, I will just follow through to the end, okay? So question 5. Which of the following contexts is not generally associated with garbage can organizations? Qual dos contextos abaixo não é geralmente associado ao comportamento organizacional lata de lixo? So this is kind of an easy one, right? High-tech companies like Amazon, Google, and Tesla, well, these guys are top-notch. These guys understand how people behave. That's actually part of their business model. É parte do modelo de negócios desses caras entender como as pessoas agem. So obviously they will not proceed as garbage can organizations. Okay, so 83% got it right. But let's check the other ones. Budget committees in private and government organizations. Gente, comitês de orçamento são muito frequentemente modelos de lata de lixo. Por quê? Muitas vezes as pessoas não participam, quando participam reclamam de decisões tomadas na sua ausência, as pessoas têm preferências distintas entre elas, cada um acha que sabe o que é o melhor para fazer e tal. Então, discussão de orçamento tem algo muito parecido com lata de lixo mesmo. University and large schools, well, this is the classical example of garbage can organizations, right? And then we have residential condo meetings, NGOs, and informal organizations. Reuniões de condomínios, ONGs e organizações informais. Gente, esses 3 casos, mais uma vez, quando o trabalho depende de uma atitude voluntária, a chance de a gente ter garbage can é muito alta. So when we're talking about voluntary participation, many times people think that, well, if they show up, they have to have the final word. They are already being generous just to be there. And so everybody should listen up, whatever they have to say. So we end up having very frequently garbage can-like behavior in those situations, okay? All right. Number 6, which of the following statements does not emphasize key takeaways from the study of garbage can organizations? Qual das afirmativas abaixo não enfatiza aprendizado-chave do estudo de organizações lata de lixo? First one, organizational patterns of decision-making may reflect more appropriateness than consequentialism. Os padrões de tomada de decisão organizacional podem refletir mais aceitabilidade social de uma escolha do que a consequencialidade. Now, let me ask you this, guys. Does this thing make sense? I wanted to be sure that everyone understands what is consequentialism and appropriateness. Todo mundo entende essa expressão? Please raise your thumb there, make some smoke sign or whatever, just to let me know that you guys are fine with these ideas. Those are important ideas. Jaime, Arthur, Carlos, Elisete, thank you. Who else? If you don't show up your thumbs up, I will understand that you want me to go over and explain again. All right. Thank you, Jaime. Thank you, Carlos. Okay, thanks, guys. This is a very important idea and sometimes people just don't get it. Uma organização pode ficar tomando decisões simplesmente com medo do impacto social, do status da decisão e não fazendo aquilo que elas devem fazer. Então, Isso pode manter uma organização presa nesse padrão de comportamento. The second one, success in organization decisions may depend a lot on timing and frequency of problems emergence and the search for solutions. So, a temporalidade acaba tendo um efeito muito grande no sucesso das decisões. Porque se elas aparecerem na hora que ninguém está lá, não vai ter solução. Se elas aparecerem numa hora que só estão lá pessoas que pensam do tipo A, vai ter solução do tipo A. Se ela aparecer nas horas que só tem pessoas que pensam do tipo B, a solução vai ser tipo B. Depois as duas coisas não conversam. Alright. Problem solving orientation. Oh, sorry. The third one. Garbage can organizations are simply poorly managed ones. This is false. Garbage can organizations, they are not a synonym of bad management. That's not what we are talking about. We are talking about complex organizations, not poorly managed ones, okay? All right. And the final one, problem-solving orientation becomes a predominant pattern when access to the decision table is restricted. In other words, specialized access. Now, check this out, guys. This is something that we learned from the study of garbage can organizations. And this is surprising, right? Think about it. We only get to solve problems as a pattern of decision making when we restrict access to decision arenas. This is bad news, right? I mean, in a general idea, we want people to participate. We want to be democratic. But there's just like too much democracy. If you try to involve everybody in every decision, what you get is a mess. You don't get to solve problems. You don't get to move on. Please do not understand that I'm here trying to support, I don't know, dictatorship. That's not the thing here. It's not like, oh yeah, democracy is a garbage can. No, that's not what we are saying. It doesn't mean that you have a very restricted access to decision arenas, everything is going to be fine. That's not true also, okay? So there is some sort of middle ground. Tem caminho do meio aí. But the bad news is that if you are too democratic, you may get to not solve all the problems. This is the message, right? Okay, so let's move to the next one. Now we are talking here about the emperor's new clothes, right? That tale, that fairy tale, short fictitious story. So, which are the important issues raised, brought up by this tale? First one, how absolute power inebriates a person and prevent wise choices. Como o poder absoluto embriaga uma pessoa e impede escolhas sábias. That's not true. Power plays some role in the story, but we are not here talking about absolute power and preventing wisdom. That's not exactly the point, okay? The second one, how strong context can lead to collective irrational behavior. This is the right thing, okay? So how conformity and how people may have contexts that are stronger than reason. And then everybody follows on. Everybody keeps going into this irrational path, okay? Here, everybody got it right, so I don't think there's a point to discuss the other options. Question 8, true or false? Ethical blindness is a temporary inability to see ethical aspects of a decision, many times due to strong contexts. When it happens, people tend to deviate from their own values. It is generally context-bounded, and it's at least partially unconscious. Okay, 100% got it right. This is a very precise statement. A cegueira ética é uma incapacidade temporária de ver os aspectos éticos de uma decisão, muitas vezes decorrente, devido a contextos fortes. Quando acontece, as pessoas tendem a se desviar dos seus próprios valores. So, good people doing bad things. It happens. It's not a story. It's not only in a medieval time. It happens every day, ok? Geralmente é limitada pelo contexto e é pelo menos parcialmente inconsciente. All right. Good. Every one of you got this one right. This is good. Question 9. About strong context, which of the following statement is false? Sobre contextos fortes, qual dentre as afirmativas é falsa? First one. Those are circumstances that can overpower reason, values, and good intentions. That's true, yes. This is not false. They may involve situational aspects, such as time pressure. Yes, that's also true. Eles podem envolver aspectos situacionais do momento, como a pressão por terminar rápido. Às vezes as pessoas fazem a coisa errada porque elas estão pressionadas pelo tempo. E aí sequer tem atenção para olhar para aspectos éticos. They are not related at all to narrow framing. Eles não têm nada a ver com um enquadramento restrito. Oh, come on. This is the answer, right? This is a false statement. And finally, they can be completely irrational outside, but they may seem very reasonable and normal from inside. That is true, guys. Please pay attention to this. Sometimes people work at companies, and as they describe their work environment, their friends will tell them, you gotta be crazy. This is not normal. What you live there, I mean, I know you need the job, but this is crazy. You should get out of there. It's making you sick. And people don't. Sometimes they participate in toxic environments for long times. And that's not good at all, right? Okay. So, question 10. Recall the case of Ford Pinto that we discussed in class and identify the correct statement from the set below. Relembre o caso do Ford Pinto, que discutimos em casa, e identifique a afirmativa correta entre as apresentadas abaixo. Ford's top executives and engineers were all evil people that could only think about profit. Please pay attention to this, guys. This is what you are told every day. As pessoas dizem isso todos os dias. Que você olha para o mundo e fala assim, o ser humano não presta. As pessoas são muito gananciosas. It is true, you have a lot of bad people out there, but sometimes, and many times, organizations can somehow constrain people's behavior and draw their attention outwards, not towards the ethical aspects of what they are doing, okay? So it is not true that all top executives of that company were evil people. Certainly that's not true. The second one, that case reveals the true nature of people, mostly hidden of the press and the general public. This is all wrong, right? First many people on the press and in the general public, many people think that people are just mean. It's all the human nature. This is a very common perception. All right. So the third statement says, strong context and ethical blindness help understanding how organizations may operate for a long time with questionable practice. That's the right one. Everyone got it right, and I'm happy for that, okay? Questions before I move on? Should I stop by and take a look at any of this? check out your grades here. I got 13 people getting 10. I got 6 people getting 9, 3 people getting 8, and just 2 people below 8. So this is a good performance. I'm happy. All right. Questions so far? All right. So if you don't have any questions, I'm going to try and move to talk a little bit about the documentary that I suggested you guys watch. How many of you have watched that documentary? At least just a piece. Please thumbs up for me. Who got the chance to watch at least a piece of that documentary? Come on, guys. No one of you? It's a good film, you know. It's a little slow in the beginning, but it's kind of a thought-provoking one. So let me share you here my screen so I can share with you some of my perceptions about that film. Okay. So we are this week still talking about organizational behavior. So here come those guys and they are talking about sustainability and sustainability for businesses. And the angle, o ângulo que eles escolheram, the angle that they chose to discuss this thing was kind of a curious and actually intelligent one. It was a good perspective. They said, look, at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, what is value? And then there is this conventional description of value from economics, which is willingness to pay. If you look at the demand function, let me remind you here of Economics 101 or Introduction to Economics. If you look to this thing here, price, quantity, when you have a demand curve like this, what you're saying is that as price is high, people buy less. As long as price goes down, people tend to buy more. So you go all the way to the demand function here, and you have, as price goes down, people tend to buy more. So what these points here represent, well, they are the points in a demand curve, that's right. But mostly what they are saying is how much people are willing to pay for specific quantities. If price goes up, they are not willing to pay. They are not accepting that price. Now, let me raise this question. Is there something that you guys purchase and that you feel that it's a bargain? I mean, you buy something and you felt like you could pay twice as much and you'd still be happy to purchase it. Tem alguma coisa que vocês compram e que logo depois de comprar, você fala assim, bom, eu paguei X por esse valor, mas eu estou tão feliz que eu acho que se eu tivesse pago o dobro, eu ainda assim estaria comprando. Please think about this for a while. What's the name of this thing in economics? Como é que é o nome dessa situação em que você paga por um preço o valor de mercado, quando na verdade, pessoalmente, você estaria disposto a pagar muito mais do que aquilo que você efetivamente paga? Come on, guys. I want to hear you. You can use the chat, type in what's your answer. You're forgetting, right? So I'm going to try to remind you this. Okay. So the story goes like this. Let me clear this out. I'm going to draw again. So you have here this price and quantities. Excedente do consumidor. Thank you, Jaime. You know how we call that thing in English? We call that consumer surplus. Consumer surplus is excedente do consumidor. It goes like this. You have the supply curve here. You have the demand curve here. And then the equilibrium price here is something like this. But if this is the price of equilibrium, everybody buys the stuff at that price, right? So no one would need to pay more because they can just go to market and they are not going to be ripped off. Nobody's going to take advantage of them, right? But it means that these people here who would be willing to pay much more, they only pay P star. Eles só pagam P estrela, mesmo que existam pessoas aqui, ó, na curva de demanda dizendo que estariam dispostas a pagar muito mais. So all this area here represents consumer surplus. So this is the measure of value to conventional economics. Is the consumer surplus, right? But what if we're talking about some actions or some goods that generate benefits that are not individual, they are social benefits. So then we're talking about social value, social measure of value. There's another example that I'd like to share. There was a restaurant here, a place nearby, near my house here at Aldeia, and this restaurant was very good, and it was not that expensive, but all of a sudden, someday, they just closed. They just were not there anymore. They were not operating. They went out of business. And when they went out of business, I felt like I lost. I said, well, I love that place. But if you ask me how often I would go to that restaurant, not that much. Quer dizer, eu não ia no restaurante com muita frequência, mas quando ele fechou, eu falei, nossa, me lasquei. Eu adorava aquele restaurante. Think about this. I mean, I wanted it to be there, but I was not using frequently enough. As soon as they closed, they went out of business, I realized what I had lost. So these guys were all the time here in this documentary. They are talking about this. The conventional way economics tells you about value, it's not sufficient. It's not enough to express many of our choices. Sometimes we want to make choices that have a meaning, have a purpose, and we get some sort of satisfaction out of them. So they keep asking you, how are you going to change the world? How are we going to make sustainable business work? And that's not easy. So the whole documentary is talking about this topic, okay? Once again, this is not trying to minimize or to criticize conventional economics. It is just saying that it doesn't have a complete answer to people's behavior, okay? All right, the second point that they try to make there is like, in conventional business, sometimes what you end up having is a system of disconnected perspectives. So you go to a store and you purchase a shirt like this, and you don't care about how this shirt was produced. if it was like slavery, if people died to produce this shirt, you don't care. You just check the price and say, well, the price is very, very low. It turns out that sometimes we know that low prices are actually the expression of negative externalities. So some business don't pay up all the social costs involved in their production, and then their prices seem unbeatable. They seem very, very low. And people say, yeah, great, that's it, that's what I want. Later on, they may regret. They may say, you know what, we destroyed forests, we destroyed the environment. Now we have global warming. What we're going to do about that? So if choices are disconnected from their consequences, people make poor choices. There is a name for that. We call delayed feedback. O retorno atrasado. Delayed feedback. If you make a choice and you don't see right away what are the full consequences, all the consequences of your action, then you may not get to have a good choice on how to proceed, because you can see all the consequences of your act. So this is the kind of warning that they try to make in this documentary. And there are some good ideas there. I want to emphasize a few more before we move to our discussions, okay? They come and say, biodiversity is decreasing. I think everybody knows that. A biodiversidade está em queda. We are kind of eliminating species. We are kind of using the same seeds to raise our crops. Nós estamos usando as mesmas sementes para cultivar a maior parte das nossas lavouras. And we are losing biodiversity. It turns out that in history, we have had moments in which a plague showed up and destroyed completely our production. So they were mentioning the case in Irish famine. It was something like this, yes. So it was like people were raising potatoes, crops, and there was a blight, and all of a sudden, people lost completely their production. Why is that? Because they were cultivating a very specific variety of potatoes. If you don't have a number of varieties and a new disease shows up, you are done. You are finished. So, in a sense, biodiversity is a wise choice that nature has made. But we are not as wise as nature, right? So we are kind of contributing to the diminishing biodiversity, and we may end up paying a very high price for that. Does that idea make sense to you? All right, so you guys are very silent today. I hope you know what you're doing, because in a few minutes I'm gonna have you guys discussing some very difficult questions, okay? So I understand that you don't have a question so far, but you're gonna have to end up contributing, giving your perspective to some questions I have right next after this slide, okay? So they come and say, they talk about shared value, how companies can create wealth while serving people. You may ask, come on, but wait, this is the norm. This is what happens all the time, right? If you sell a good and the person is happy to buy this good, then you're serving people. No, wait. Shared value means you're helping your clients and your workers and the community around the business. If you had two companies, one of them as profitable as the other, provides goods that are pretty much similar, but in this company here, workers are happier, which one is best? Well, come on, this is obvious, right? I mean, if you are providing the same goods, both companies are equally profitable, obviously you're going to pick one that raises happiness of workers. If that is the case, you have a better business model. So it's a strong point they're trying to make here, right? And I love this sentence. All profits are not created equal. This is a parody, é uma versão da frase. Os homens são criados iguais. And those are sentences that you generally find in the constitution of a country or in the human rights by the United Nations. Todos os homens são iguais perante a lei, things like that, right? So what they're trying to say here, not all profits are equal. Profits are not created equal. You have good profits and you have not so good profits. We have to distinguish between them. And finally, they have this kind of bottom line, triple bottom line discussion. I don't know if you have heard that before. Bottom line is the last line of your balance sheet. Então, é a última linha do balanço de uma empresa. What is the last line of your balance sheet? That is profits. So this is the bottom line. This is an expression in English. And now what we're trying to convince people is that we have to look for a triple bottom line. Uma tripla linha final do balanço, in which we're going to have not only net profits, não apenas o lucro líquido, but also the environmental aspects and the social concerns. If all of them are positive, good to go. We have a sustainable business, okay? And just to finish this explanation before I have you guys think a little bit about what we have discussed over the last 2 classes or 3 classes, let me just kind of making a point here about the competitiveness of sustainable business. Why is that even an economist that believes in profits, believes in capitalism like myself, why we still want to have this change? Well, what we are trying to say is that sustainable business, they are better for, even for shareholders. So let's take a look at this, okay? There are 4 arguments to make. The first one is that if you are looking for sustainable ways to change your business, you are driven by innovation. And that's already a good news, right? You try to reduce costs, and as we do that, we end up having a smaller impact in the environment, right? A good example of that is beer production, produção de cerveja. Over the last 20 years, if you check InBev, you're gonna see that these guys used to spend like 4.5, 5 liters of water to produce 1 liter of beer. Então, na cadeia de produção deles todinha, eles gastavam 5 litros de água para produzir 1 litro de cerveja. And now this number is like less than half. So they cut how much water they had to use to produce the same beer. So this is cutting costs and also reducing the environmental impact of their operation. So it's good news. It's more profit and less environmental impact. Second argument is, as you have a sustainable company, a sustainable business, many times you can find funding, cheaper sources of funding. You can get credit in special conditions, and you can actually pay less interest. Why is that so? Por que os bancos estão dispostos a te oferecer um empréstimo a taxas de juros mais baratas se o seu negócio é sustentável? Well, you have to keep understanding. So check out the next argument here, the one down here. Risks. Risk management means a way to evaluate future costs. Se você tem um modelo de gestão de riscos mais sofisticado, Os bancos acham que a chance de você ter custos mais altos no futuro é menor. E faz sentido. Alright, so if the chances of having losses in the future are smaller, then you are a less risky company. Therefore, giving you money, giving you a loan is not as risky as to some other companies. So that's why credit gets cheaper to sustainable business. And finally, if you try to embrace sustainability, there's a good chance you're going to end up having more customers, and those who buy your product, they end up being more, how do you call that? Fidelidade in English, how do they call that? Oh, I don't know. I'm going to try and remember later. But they are just going to be buying your products and not checking the your opponent, your adversaries. They're going to keep giving you their businesses, right? So this is all 4 arguments towards a sustainable business, okay? So here we're not talking about, oh, how warm-hearted we are. Não é do coração que a gente está falando isso. A gente está falando de um modelo de negócios que tem mais inovação, menos risco, acesso a fontes mais baratas e que se diferencia diante do consumidor. O consumidor acaba comprando a reputação de uma empresa. Ok? How is that going so far? Okay, guys, now I have something for you. I want you to talk about sustainability and sustainable business, but I want you to kind of put together all the things that we have discussed. If we understand sustainability as a civilizational challenge, se a gente entende a sustentabilidade como um desafio da civilização, then let's think about behavior economics. Quais os aspectos da mente e do comportamento que fazem influência, que tem um papel importante na discussão sobre sustentabilidade? Alright? Which aspects of mind and behavior play important roles here? So you may have like cognitive biases, nudge, sludge, prospect theory, garbage can-like organizations, ethical or unethical behavior. I'm going to give you guys let's say, 20 minutes to discuss. Yeah, we only have that. I'll give you 20 minutes and then we're going to gather later on, okay? Can it be? Let me do something. Let me just copy this question here so I can put it in our chat box, okay? And then you can verify it, okay? Anyone can see there in the chat box which aspects of mind and behavior play important roles in sustainability as a civilizational challenge. Everybody understood the question? Okay, so I'm going to break you guys into 2 rooms and you're going to have 20 minutes to discuss. As soon as those 20 minutes finish, we're going to be back here and we're going to talk it through, okay? All of us. Okay, so let's go. There we go. Just please click to accept and join the groups there, okay? I'll see you in a bit. All right, everybody, how did it go? Conseguiram conversar um pouco?
A gente conseguiu sim.
Legal. Eu vi que nós tivemos os grupos de tamanho um pouco desiguais. Em um grupo acabou ficando só Carlos e Misael, os outros acabaram saindo mais cedo. E no outro grupo de Elisete, Jaime, ficou um grupo maior. Quem gostaria de começar?
Eu poderia começar falando que a gente encontrou alguns aqui que a gente acredita que teria maior impacto sobre sustentabilidade. A gente discutiu primeiro que a gente observou que o nudge seria um dos principais. A gente lembrou de alguns exemplos que foram trazidos em aula, daquele exemplo do cigarro, que é colocado uma plaquinha para você votar se você prefere Messi ou Cristiano Ronaldo, e inconscientemente você acaba ajudando a reduzir a poluição, esse tipo de coisa. Tinha um exemplo daquele, esqueci o nome daquela ferramenta que o pessoal coloca no banheiro, que você tira o papelzinho ali para enxugar as mãos também, que tem uma imagem da América Latina.
Boa.
Pegando esses exemplos, a gente conseguiu alocar o nudge nesse sentido. Alguém quer falar outro? Alguém quer falar de outro tópico aí, Elisete? Isso.
A gente também pontuou aquela questão no caso da falta de ética, né, organizacional. Eu acho que foi Jaime que falou em questão da Volkswagen, por exemplo, fraudar os testes de emissão de gases dos carros. A gente conversou um pouco sobre indústrias que despejam lixo em rios, aquela questão. Qual foi outro exemplo que a gente usou, Tomás? Tu lembra? Teve mais um que eu não tô lembrando.
Acho que o Elisete falou de uma empresa de Toritama, Toritama não, de Caruaru, eu acho. Sei lá. Uma empresa que estava despejando, estava acabando prejudicando o ambiente e tal. No geral, empresas que acabam poluindo o ambiente de alguma forma, mas que não dão tanta atenção a isso.
Fazem vista grossa para
Esse tipo de atitude.
Pois é.
Excelentes pontos, gente. Concordo integralmente, tá? Tanto com o nudge como uma possibilidade de ajudar, né, de alguma forma ajudar as pessoas a tomarem decisões mais sustentáveis, quanto a questão antiética. Agora, engraçado que também pode ter o sludge, né? Pode ter empresas que estão perdendo negócios por causa da sustentabilidade. Então, assim, por exemplo, uma empresa baseada na economia de petróleo, né, da economia do petróleo, ela pode desaparecer. Então, todo tipo de bloqueio que ela puder fazer para evitar essas mudanças, obviamente, ela vai tentar fazer. Então, no mundo inteiro, as companhias de petróleo estão trabalhando ativamente com lobby, pagando pessoas para tentar influenciar deputados e senadores para não acelerar o ritmo de mudança para a sustentabilidade. Isso daí é uma forma de sludge, é uma tentativa de tentar barrar, de alguma forma embarreirar a melhor decisão, a decisão mais racional. Muito bons pontos. Deixa eu ver no outro grupo aqui do Carlos e do Misael se eles queriam fazer algum comentário de algum aspecto adicional que eles discutiram lá. Não sei se o Misael já chegou em casa, ele estava aí no transporte, né, Misael?
Cheguei, professor, cheguei. Eu estava conversando com o Carlos. O que me chama a atenção dentro desses aspectos de comportamento é a questão dos contextos fortes, né? Hoje, no mundo, desde aquela comissão do Rio 92, há uma série de preocupações com relação ao meio ambiente, né? Vários avanços que já fizeram, né? A questão do protocolo de Kyoto, a coisa do clima. Esse contexto em si, ele é muito importante porque ele vai, de uma forma meio que direta, né, influenciando não só o pensamento de grandes empresas, como também o comportamento do consumidor, que vai, na verdade, ditar, no final, o que essa empresa vai ter que fazer, né? Porque se o consumidor muda o seu comportamento, se ele realmente começa a prezar mais pelo meio ambiente, por práticas mais sustentáveis, as empresas inevitavelmente vão ter que seguir esse caminho, porque elas não querem perder o lucro nem os clientes, né? Então, essa questão do contexto forte, eu acho muito interessante dentro dessa situação que a gente está vivendo hoje.
Excelente, muito bom ponto. E até uma coisa que você falou aí, Misael, assim, um dos aspectos do contexto forte é o tal do narrow framing, né, que é o enquadramento restrito. Quando a gente pensa pela sustentabilidade, a gente alarga o campo de visão das pessoas. Então, uma civilização insustentável é uma civilização que não conseguiu fazer esse alargamento, porque ela não consegue enxergar todos os impactos das escolhas que ela mesma está fazendo, promovendo e tudo mais. Então, é uma das maneiras de entender a insustentabilidade da nossa civilização hoje, é porque a gente não se deu conta de todos os impactos do que a gente está fazendo. Da acidificação do oceano, da poluição por plástico, da redução rapidíssima da biodiversidade. A gente não se deu conta ainda da quantidade de coisa que a gente está fazendo e quais que vão ser todas as consequências. Na hora que você começa a chamar a atenção, você vai abrindo o espectro, o campo de visão dessas pessoas. Então você vai fugindo do tal do narrow framing, que é um enquadramento restrito.
Ô, professor,
Pode falar, cara.
mas aí tem uma coisa. Eu vou dar um exemplo, só para saber se certo ou errado o pensamento. Mas eu sempre fui contra jogar lixo na rua. Detesto quem joga lixo na rua. Eu vejo um cara jogando lixo da janela do carro, dá vontade de pegar o lixo e jogar nele de novo.
Eu também.
Eu tinha um colega que ele pegava e jogava lixo na rua, principalmente quando eu estava do lado. E eu pegava o lixo do chão e jogava no lixo. E ele ficava tirando onda. E eles são pessoas assim que hoje estão no ensino superior e são pessoas que têm acesso à informação. E muita gente tem acesso à informação, mas não liga para isso. Acha que isso é história da carochinha, não sei o quê. Aí depois reclama também que tem aí as enchentes, né, nas cidades. Essas pessoas que têm acesso à informação e têm essa informação, elas ainda se encaixam no narrow frame ou não?
Eu acho que sim, eu acho que se encaixa assim, sabe, Carlos? Porque o que acontece, cara? Mesmo que um pouco disso seja atitude e não necessariamente informação, mas a gente está vendo é que as pessoas não conhecem mesmo todo o impacto do que estão fazendo. Tem muita gente que joga o lixo da rua e ela faz isso por um hábito, um descuido, um desleixo, perdão, mas na hora que a gente tem a inundação e a gente tem o colapso da cidade por causa os bloqueios das drenagens, aí essa pessoa às vezes se dá conta, mas daqui a pouquinho ela esquece de novo. Então, assim, embora seja aí um caso um pouco mais de atitude do que de informação, eu acho que a maneira como essas questões são superadas na medida que uma cidade ela vai convergindo para um consenso sobre sustentabilidade. Então, essa semana, por exemplo, morreu um cara que foi prefeito de Curitiba, governador do estado do Paraná, 2 vezes, chamado Jaime Lerner. Ele era um arquiteto. E se você visita Curitiba, você vai ver que ela é uma cidade que tem algumas coisas que destoam do resto do Brasil, em termos de urbanismo, em termos de criar novas práticas, novas vivências, tanto no sentido da sustentabilidade, quanto também no sentido da mobilidade. Uma mobilidade mais equilibrada, com melhores sistemas de transporte e tudo mais. A primeira é implantar o BRT e tudo isso. Então, assim, como é que uma cidade como aquela subiu de patamar? Uma das maneiras é com muito convencimento. Então, as pessoas elas tendem a manter-se numa espécie de um conservacionismo, mesmo que aquilo seja contra o próprio interesse delas. Então, deixa eu fazer um apanhado aqui que a gente precisa acabar, são 8h10. Vieses cognitivos. Tem o viés do tempo presente, as pessoas pensam muito mais no agora do que no depois. Tem o conservatismo, que é isso que eu falei, a tendência a conservar a situação, não gostar de mudança, mudanças de status, sempre gera preocupação. O nudge, vocês trouxeram a bola aí, o nudge é um bom caminho para fazer. Agora, e o prospect theory? A teoria do prospecto. Aí entra a questão do loss aversion, o medo da perda, a aversão à perda. Então se fala, tem muita gente que fala assim, e eu vou mudar o mundo inteiro por causa dessa sua teoria do aquecimento global? Percebe? O cara está falando assim, eu vou gastar um monte de dinheiro, mudar tudo para alguma coisa que talvez fosse desnecessária. Então tem uma ideia de que você está desperdiçando, que é inútil, que não, enfim. Então ele apela para essa ideia da perda. O garbage can, gente, não dá para a gente esquecer que o nosso planeta é um orçamento. É um grande orçamento. Se a gente lascar ele agora, não vai ter para daqui a geração futura. A sustentabilidade é justamente uma discussão de orçamento. Então você fala assim, se você gastar tudo agora, destruir agora, você vai gastar mais 6 gerações para restituir o que você está fazendo agora. Então, no final das contas, é uma escolha intertemporal. E o que a gente sabe sobre discussões orçamentárias? Ah, meu amigo, cada um tem uma tecnologia, as pessoas às vezes participam, às vezes não participam, cada um acha que sabe o que deve ser. A gente é diferente hoje do que a gente vai ser amanhã. Tem gente que nasceu completamente contra a sustentabilidade, 10 anos depois ele é o cara mais verde que tem. Então, todos esses aspectos de economia comportamental estão presentes, tá, gente? Alright, so let's wrap up. Thank you very much for participating. I enjoyed very much this discussion. I'm going to post this version of my class notes with some final comments, okay? So if you download it again, you're going to see that you have like some difference, some additional comments there. But it's basically the same class notes, okay? Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend. I'll see you next time. Enjoy your time here. It's Friday. Even though we cannot go to a bar, to a restaurant, enjoy your Friday night. I'll see you around. Thanks, Vinícius. Thanks, Elisete. Marcelo, boa noite. I'll see you guys later. Boa noite, Misael. Obrigado.
Boa noite, professor.
Boa noite, Tomás. Um abração. Bom descanso.